It's a new month, time for a new book. Oh, I'm very scared. It's finally time to talk about this book, and I have to say that I'm pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed this, and you could say it exceeded my expectations in many ways. So I gave this 3.5 stars, and that means I liked it more than average. So what is Dune about? Dune follows the Atreides family as they have to move from their home planet into the sandy dunes of Arrakis. They are forced to rule there. We're following Paul Atreides, who is the successor to his father, and how they are put into the political game of the Harkonnens and the ruling emperor. Messy, you don't say. As expected, Dune wasn't the easiest read for me, and it required more brain cells than I hoped, but still, it was definitely a read that I could appreciate. What actually made me like Dune so much is how intricate the world building is, and that there is such deep lore and political agendas that really truly excited me. I mean, I have to say that the world building in Dune is intensely expensive. There's literally appendices at the back of the book that you see here. Appendices that at the back of the book that talk about the geographical, the political, the cultural landscape of this world. And that was what really drove me forward with the story, because I really wanted to find out more. I was just very curious about this entire world. But really, the true difficulty of the story lies in the plot for me, because while I may be a character-driven reader, Dune isn't really about plot and it isn't really about characters. And if I recall correctly, Brittany from Books with Brittany explained that Dune is something more like a thematic story kind of thing. I don't really know what it is and what it signifies, but I do see that Dune is about those thematic storylines where it's really about fate, it's really about destiny when it comes to the plot lines. Paul is hailed to be the prophesied leader of Arrakis, and that he would bring the people of Arrakis to glory. And that is actually basically the fate and destiny of the plot line of this entire story. While the world was complex and I really lost myself in it, and also got a little lost in the process, I enjoyed going with the flow of the story and just seeing where the story would take me. However, that was referring to part 1. When I reached part 2, things changed drastically for me. I really disliked part 2. It was such a slog. Nothing really happened despite seeing things from multiple perspectives. We were not just seeing from Paul's perspective, we were seeing from Jessica's perspective, who is Paul's mom. We were also seeing the Harkonnen's perspective and a close friend of the Empress perspective. And despite having multiple perspectives, we were not really moving forward with the story, and the story was just stuck at a standstill. We were neither here nor there, if you know what I mean. And we had a great catalyst in the story where something happened and it was really trying to push the story forward, but the story was like, no, I don't want to move forward. And I was like, nah, because I'm bored. And I really found myself struggling through that portion of the story, and I was like, shucks. Did I guess wrong about Dune? Am I not gonna enjoy this as much as I hoped? And I was really dragging my feet, and I was hoping it would get better. And luckily, part 3 came, and I was blessed with a story that finally decided to move. The writing is what really helped me appreciate the story. There's some beauty in the way that Frank Herbert writes, and that just examines character so well, and that you really feel like you're in their head, and that in general the story feels very beautifully written. but it's not too flowery in its prose. But despite all that, and despite seeing into our characters' minds, despite having all this great writing skill that Frank Herbert has, the pacing of the story really brought down the element of writing in general. It was really choppy for me, and part one was great. Part one, I was super intrigued. We were understanding the lore, we were understanding the context, we were understanding the politics, we were getting to know our characters. Part two became a gigantic slog, and then comes part three, where we have a random 2-year jump into the future, and things just ramped up into intensity, and I'm just lost in the story again. And I was getting very intrigued, but also I realized, why do we have part two slog then? You know what I mean? Yeah. And in general, because of that 2-year time jump, we really lack the satisfactory build-up of a good plot line. And so despite all the great things I can appreciate about Dune, which is like the writing style, the characterizations, the thematic writing on fate and destiny, I ultimately do have a bit of problem with the pacing, and in general, I do definitely have biggest issue with the pacing, which can hinder the enjoyment of a book tremendously for me. And so, with that being said, on the scale of dragons, how badly do I want to continue on with this series? I gotta be honest, it would be 3 dragons out of 5. I'm intrigued because of the way things ended and how Dune in general feels more like a gigantic prequel to a greater storyline. And so actually, I already bought Dune Messiah, and can you see, like, comparing the two, how this is so much thinner? I was shocked. And generally, the font is so much bigger. I can't see if you can tell, but like, yeah, look, so much bigger. And I was like, okay, well, this wouldn't be hard to read, right? So I was invested enough to actually pick this up. And so for the sake of continuity, I would just read Dune Messiah and see how much I like it. And from what I understand, people recommend that you read Dune and Dune Messiah together before deciding whether you want to continue on with the series or not. So if I don't like Dune Messiah still, then I would probably just give up the series from there. But actually, with everything, and despite giving it a 3.5 stars out of 5, I really still can enjoy Dune for what it is. It just has this magnetic pull for me that I think about the story from time to time. I think about Paul Atreides from time to time. I think about the destiny that lies ahead of him from time to time. And so with that, truly, Dune will not be receiving the library stamp of approval from me. Very sad, because I was hoping I could use my new book embossing stamp for Dune, but alas, I will not be stamping Dune. Unless things change with Dune Messiah and the future Dune series if I continue on with it. And that is the end, my friends. That is essentially the end. And if you read Dune, I'm curious as to find out, like, what do you think of Dune and what is your feelings about Dune? I'm curious. And if you have not read Dune, are you intrigued enough to read Dune? Is this the kind of book that you think you can enjoy? So, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope that you will pick up Dune. Actually would want you to pick up Dune. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Bye!